Donald Trump's illegal mass deportation plan might be the biggest failure of his presidency, not only because it is a moral travesty, but because it has backfired in every conceivable way. An issue that Donald Trump claimed was so popular it helped win him the election is now one he is underwater in. And not just that, he continues to suffer loss after loss in court over his deportation agenda. And it just got worse because one of the most morally reprehensible steps he's taken just got busted in a leaked email that exposed the criminality of this administration. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting the work that we're doing. Now, before we can get into those leaked emails out of this administration, I want to start with a breakdown Rachel Maddow gave of a deportation story not getting nearly enough coverage in LA still.
This Trump presidency wants to be seen as fearsome, right? They want to be seen as powerful and scary. They want people to be afraid of them. But what they really are, in equal measure, is awful and weird. And it's worth being afraid of that because it's weird and awful and scary to have somebody that weird and awful in charge of the federal government. But it's not fearsome in the way they mean it to be. It's fearsome in the sense of like, oh my God, these people are in charge of what? I mean, Trump really did pardon the guy who bragged about pooping in the U.S. Capitol. And that footage of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein is a real thing. And the bizarre thing with his Justice Department today and its pronouncement on the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theories, what are we supposed to make of all that from these people? At the same time, he's got the military, the U.S. military deployed in Los Angeles, California. While the National Guard is now asking pleas for its troops back because, among other things, they need to prepare for wildfire season. But no, Trump today, for whatever reason, sent a small army of federal agents and National Guard troops in military vehicles and on horseback into a park in Los Angeles for a big, weird show of force that nobody can figure out. There was kind of nobody in the park. They didn't seem to have any reason to be there, but this is how they fanned out across a mostly empty MacArthur Park in Los Angeles, California today. What's that about? What are you doing? The president of the Los Angeles City Council telling reporters today, it, quote, looked like a staging for a TikTok video, saying that if Border Patrol wants to film in Los Angeles, quote, you should apply for a film permit like everybody else and stop trying to scare the bejesus out of everybody who lives in this great city.
I wanted to start with that clip from Rachel Maddow because I think it's a perfect representation of the plans of this Trump administration. Waste resources on PR stunts as your plans backfire in court. They're doing so. They're carrying out this intimidation effort because they know if they face real opposition, they're just going to lose. Donald Trump this morning suffered a loss in court over his attempt to get rid of birthright citizenship. Donald Trump's immigration policies are underwater and only getting worse every single day, and that is what we just saw in leaked emails from a whistleblower inside the White House that exposed new revelations about the Abrego Garcia story that are incredibly disturbing. Whistleblower emails expose fresh Trump abuses in Abrego Garcia case. Emails provided to Congress by a whistleblower and 15-year veteran of the Justice Department revealed the administration officials went to striking lengths to prop up the claim that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a leader of the MS-13 gang, even as President Trump was coming under intense pressure to return him from El Salvador and wrongfully deporting him. The emails, which the New Republic obtained in advance of their scheduled release Thursday, deepen our understanding of the administration's extraordinary mishandling of Abrego Garcia's case. They show in fresh detail how officials sought to create the impression that Abrego Garcia was a dangerous criminal before having any evidence to back up that claim, which has since proven to be unsupported. The emails were provided to Congress by Arez Ruvina, a 15-year veteran of the Justice Department who was fired this spring after expressing doubts in court about the rendition of Abrego Garcia in CCOT, El Salvador's notorious megaprison. Abrego Garcia, who had been living in Maryland under a form of protected status granted by an immigration judge in 2019, was deported on March 15th due to an admitted error. But the Trump administration refused to bring back Garcia to the United States for months, even defying a Supreme Court order to facilitate his return, and justified all this by largely citing his supposed MS-13 status. The administration finally brought him back in early June, only to bring new criminal charges against him for smuggling migrants. On June 24th, this whistleblower filed a complaint to the Justice Department's Inspector General and to the Senate and House Judiciary Committee alleging extensive misconduct inside the DOJ. The complaint's most explosive, widely covered charge was that a top DOJ leader, Emil Bove, told officials that in deporting migrants under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, that you may have to ignore court orders stopping the removal and tell the courts to F you. But the whistleblower complaint also detailed internal deliberations over Abrego Garcia's case, and this part is also damning. The newly released emails submitted by the team's attorney to Senator Dick Durbin, the ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, in response to Durbin's queries, sharpen our knowledge of his past story. For instance, one key exchange occurred on March 31st when the government was submitting a brief in litigation over Abrego Garcia's fate. Up to this point, the email showed ICE had declared Abrego Garcia was an MS-13, and officials were scrambling to pin down the basis for that determination. In the March 31st exchange, senior counsel to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was debating with other top officials at DOJ, DOJ, and state what could be said to the court about Abrego Garcia. One of these officials was, "Can we say the following?" Percival asked, then listed several things he'd like the administration to say about Abrego Garcia, one being this guy is a leader of MS-13. If we can get a declaration to that effect, yes, Riuvini answered. This meant the assertion could not be made without a facts and evidence-based declaration from ICE on Abrego Garcia's status. In other words, top DHS officials apparently were pushing to characterize Abrego Garcia as an MS-13 leader before any evidence of this had appeared, and Riuvini expressly warned against doing this absent such evidence. Subsequently in that chain, an ICE official whose name is redacted answered Percival's question about whether it's okay to call Abrego Garcia an MS-13 leader. "I have not found anything indicating leader, but I'll keep looking," the ICE official wrote, meaning that the hunt for such evidence would continue. It never materialized. That ICE official did identify Abrego Garcia as a verified member of MS-13 based on a formal declaration, which at this point had been provided by ICE. But this too would ultimately prove to be lacking in evidence. That claim was based on a ruling by a judge in early 2019 proceedings to deport him, resulting in him receiving protected status after he'd been arrested in Maryland the first time and transferred to ICE. But that ruling rested on double hearsay, on paperwork filed by a Maryland cop after Abrego Garcia's 2019 arrest that cited an unnamed confidential source, and neither the cop nor the source was cross-examined. The cop was subsequently suspended and indicted for serious professional misconduct on an unrelated case. None of this, though, stopped top administration officials and Trump himself from continuing to recklessly call Abrego Garcia a gang member and a terrorist too many times to count. Vice President J.D. Vance even described Abrego Garcia as a high-level gang member in MS-13 long after these internal emails showed the administration knew it had no evidence for the leader claim. Here's Percival's original email, courtesy of a document supplied by Durbin's office. "Can we say the following things?" asking about whether they can describe Abrego Garcia as an MS-13 gang leader. This all looks even worse now that Abrego Garcia has confirmed that he was beaten in CCOT. According to Riuvini's complaint, he continued raising concerns with top officials at DOJ, DHS, and the State Department about the lack of evidence supporting the MS-13 claim, and the emails show Riuvini's sharply warning them that failing to bring Abrego Garcia back could have terrible legal consequences and would create very bad law. So even in internal Trump administration emails, they knew what they were saying was a lie as Donald Trump and J.D. Vance continued to slander this man while he was being tortured in a prison in a country he never should have been sent to. It is an abomination, but just goes to show the abuse of power happening in Donald Trump's administration, which has been very well further detailed by Senator Adam Schiff right here.
Well, sadly, I think we're going to see a lot more of this. We're going to see the leaking of the announcement of criminal investigations against the president's perceived political enemies. Here, the president has always tried to contest the conclusion of the intelligence community back in 2016 that Russia was affirmatively trying to harm the Clinton campaign, and by doing so help the Trump campaign. He obviously hates that conclusion. but it was a pretty consensus conclusion of the intelligence community. After all, the Russians were hacking Hillary's emails and leaking them. They were pushing out social media content harmful to Hillary Clinton, as well as stuff that was just plain divisive on the issue of immigration, guns, and other things. But he's trying to contest that Russia helped his campaign by hurting Hillary Clinton, and he is also trying to go after his enemies. So I think, as Brennan was alluding, it doesn't really matter whether they're serious about this investigation. All that matters is they can announce it. They can placate the MAGA base by doing so. Now, they may very well go beyond that. We've seen them move to initiate investigations without any evidence, and there's really no telling how far this administration will go.
I should note, of course, that John Brennan is an MSNBC contributor here at the network. I want to ask about another revelation today about sort of the use of the federal government directed at James Comey. This is New York Times reporting today, after the former FBI director put a picture on Instagram of seashells arranged to say 8647. Law enforcement tailed his car and tracked his cell phone, steps usually reserved for serious threats. 86 obviously means to get rid of. They made a big to-do about it as if he was calling for the president to be killed, which I think is implausible and somewhat absurd. What do you think about the Secret Service tailing Mr. Comey?
Well, it shows the lengths that they're going to go to, once again, to go after the political enemies of the president. And here, you know, we have this, I think, really nefarious combination of the Justice Department with its weaponization working group to weaponize that department against enemies of the president. We have the FBI under Kash Patel more than willing to use extreme measures that are reported here against James Comey. And with respect to what you asked me about just a moment ago, you have Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, willing to politicize his office to push out discredited kind of claims as a way of doing the president's bidding. And the problem is we can't now rely on what the leaders of the intelligence community have to say. Tulsi Gabbard's staff was already involved in trying to push the intelligence community to amend its reporting on Nicaragua because it would embarrass the president or interfere with his immigration policy. And if you can't now trust the leaders of the intelligence community, you certainly can't trust Kash Patel at the FBI or the likes of Ed Martin or Pam Bondi at the Justice Department, then how much confidence can Americans have in the rule of law or in our intelligence agency's ability to focus on the job they should have, which is keeping us safe?
It is an administration of intimidation. That is their ultimate goal. They want us to be scared because they know that they are crumbling. And that's why we have to continue to call them out. We are certainly going to be doing so on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.